really is a privilege to be here, and thank you. Thank you for being at the table. You know, it's a saying I learned a long time ago, BC, which should either stand for before Congress or before children, that when it comes to public policy, if you're not at the table, you're probably on the menu. Now, I know you all want to be on the menu, but that's not what I'm talking about. And you've really pointed the direction of what we've accomplished with what I refer to as Farm Bill 1.0. And that is the agriculture title of the one big beautiful bill. And it was, I just couldn't be happier. You know, we've been working on this farm bill, and I did just refreshing this morning. I did the search function on my schedule to see how many peanut farms I've stood in over the past couple of years, and I was shocked how many came up. But it was really helpful. And I want to thank all of you and your fellow farmers for being at the table and to helping us. I had my philosophy on developing a farm bill was two political principles that I like to follow, and one of those is doing things in a tripartisan way, and so that's Democrats, Republicans, and you. The key stakeholders, whatever problem I'm working on, I like to reach out and I like to spend time talking with the folks who are living with the issues that they're facing that we're trying to find solutions for. And you all have been at the table in really a big way, and so thankful. The other principle I follow when it comes to legislation is doing things from the outside in. Normally in Washington, and I think a lot of state capitals, they do it from the inside out, right? They identify 4 or 5 or so-called experts, and everybody knows what an expert is. X stands for unknown quantity. That's what you get from them. And a spurt is a drip under pressure. And you lock them in a room. I like to think we give them lots of stuff to drink and no bathroom privileges so they work faster. And and they come up with a product that then we take and we legislate. And we try to sell it to the rest of the country after it becomes law. But it's never really good because we haven't brought you folks like yourselves to the table. So as we were approaching, ever since I became part of the leadership with the Agriculture Committee, ranking member, actually vice chair of the full committee starting back in 2018, and then ranking member, and then chairman of the committee, we've been doing it from the outside in. And that's why, my visits to so many peanut farms and shellers and different, all across the country, different agriculture stops, over 150 different listening sessions, 42 or 43 different states and one territory, Puerto Rico. And it really helped to develop, it was the basis for the Farm Food and National Security Act 2024. And because we had done that work, we were really prepared coming into Trump 47 to be able to take action once we had actually a pathway in the Senate to get something done. A good brother in the Lord, a friend of mine, and a mentor when I came into Congress, has become the chairman of the Senate Agriculture Committee, John Bozeman. And it was just a right combination with Brooke Rollins as Secretary of Agriculture and Donald J. Trump as President of the United States. It was just, the dream team was in place for agriculture. And so we took the opportunity when budget reconciliation was going to happen to include a lot of what we had developed following your direction, following your lead. And I was honest when I talked with you in the past. I asked people to show me and tell me what it was that you needed, not necessarily what you wanted. I learned early on, following example of my prayers, early on when I was younger, I used to pray for what I wanted. And the older I got, I figured I better pray for what I need and let God figure it out. I mean, that's the way we approach this farm bill. We may not provide folks what they wanted ultimately, human nature, but we really worked hard to provide what we needed. And I think we've delivered that in a great way, starting with Title I. Title I, which I know is so important to the peanut industry, where we did the first investment in reference prices in, well, probably generations. I mean, you go back to the 2008 Farm Bill, they actually robbed out of the reference prices in order to fund both nutrition and conservation. But we did an investment, $59 billion investment in reference prices. And it ranged, the adjustments based on commodity was anywhere from 10 to 20%. And again, it was based on what you needed, maybe not what you wanted. There were some commodities that are really set up nicely because of not just market, but market opportunities. I'll point to corn to begin with, corn, soybeans, with biofuels, and now the sustainable air fuel, which is a really exciting opportunity. They were closer to 10% increase. For peanuts, 18% increase in reference prices, because that's where we needed to be. That's what you needed. The base acres, first time in a generation anyways, we've actually opened up 30 million acres of new base acres, and they'll be based on planted and acreage that you were prevented from planting 2019 to 2023, I believe. So exciting, 30 million acres availability for base acres, to qualify under Title I. There are a lot of farmers, certainly new, young, and beginning farmers that could be very helpful. But to be honest with you, a lot of seasoned farmers who just never had base acres as well. Crop insurance. We invested $9 billion into crop insurance. First sizable investment there in a long time, because we wanted to make it more affordable for everyone, not just new, young, and beginning, but for everyone. And we wanted to make it more versatile, as opposed to, and we're never going to be able to cover all disaster issues, but I think we're in a position that we're going to be able to cover some disaster issues as opposed to doing ad hoc spending. Ad hoc disaster bills may or may not happen. They take forever. I swear that ad hoc disaster checks, many times when they were received, they went to a forwarding address because the bankruptcy had already occurred and the farm had been sold. And so by including some disaster coverage, strengthening crop insurance by making it more resilient to apply to some disaster, and we were able to accomplish that in this One Big Beautiful Bill, or Farm Bill 1.0. And so we also trying to make it more application. We're providing an incentive for folks that have specialty crops. Saw a lot of watermelon signs last night when we're driving around in town here, but especially crops that have never really had an opportunity for crop insurance policies, and by the way, crop insurance being one of the greatest example of a public-private partnership. So providing incentives for specialty crops and hopefully to be able to have some crop insurance opportunities in the future. Trade. I know that Bob, my numbers may be off, but I think somewhere around 20% of peanuts are traded, and that's important, right? I mean, that's about moving part of the supply, sending that. There's nothing sweeter than those foreign dollars coming into the United States. And you may not trade your peanuts, but quite frankly, it helps you because it strengthens that supply and demand. By providing supply out there, it helps to stabilize prices, and trade is a really important thing and a very timely thing, given President Trump's emphasis on trade. The man has been in office, I think for 6 months and 4 days, not that I'm counting, and he. The trade agreements that he is accomplishing in just over 6 months is just incredible. Most recently Japan, and the fact that they inform their decisions. I've never really had this before. I didn't really even have it under Trump 45. Well, I wasn't chairman back then either, but. For example, about a month ago, I get a call. I was getting ready to leave for church on Sunday morning, and I get a call, and it's Jamison Greer, It was a U.S. trade representative, and I'd done some favor for Jameson in the past, so he had my cell phone number. I didn't even remember that he had it. And he called me up and he said, "Chairman." I said, "Yes, Mr. Ambassador." I'm figuring bad news. And he says, "Hey, I wanted to let you know, just give you a heads up, we're going to release a framework for a trade agreement with India." And I'm thinking, cool, there are more bellies in India to fill than any other country in the world. And he said, "And I need your help." Okay. He says, "Yeah, I want you to tell me what are the agriculture trade opportunities for India." And so I thought for a short time and immediately said, "Jameson, I can't tell you right now, but you give me 24 hours, I'll give you a pretty comprehensive view." And we did that. I got a great team. We went back, we looked, but the fact that they're informing their decisions by working with the Agriculture Committee when it comes to agriculture opportunities and trade. Japan, earlier this week, that trade deal was signed. It's amazing that these things are being done in the first 6 months. It comes as no surprise. I mean, the Trump administration, they had what I call a 4-year dress rehearsal. They learned who to trust, who not to trust, what to do, what not to do. They finally figured out where the bathrooms were. And in the confidence of the man to form the America First Policy Institute, where they planned and planned and planned for a second administration. There are not many people that would have that kind of resilience to do that, but it has certainly paid off, and it's paying off when it comes to trade. And so to do that, we and this is something we heard from you, and we heard from farmers all across the country. The Farm Bill trade programs we have are the foreign market development that helps with developing new markets, and the market access program, once the markets are established, it helps our farmers and trade associations, whomever, reach out to access those markets. They had never been increased from the time that they were created. We doubled them. And with the signing of the One Big Beautiful Bill, they're now double. And what a perfect time to do that with these new markets that are opening up. That and so much more within the agriculture title. I'm looking forward to an opportunity for some questions. So if there's other questions within the title, we'll be glad to talk about. Let me talk about some things outside the agriculture title, because this is the icing on the cake, and this is why this makes this such a big deal. I think why it makes it so that our farm families are in my heart anyways, I'm a little biased obviously, are the biggest benefactors of this legislation overall. Let's just start with the death tax. The changes we did to the death tax and that we made permanent. It is estimated that 94% of all family farms will be exempt from the death tax or the inheritance tax. And that's a big deal when it comes to, planning the future of how do you hand off the farm to the next generation. Under what had been happening is you had to determine what part of a farm do you sell in order to buy back, for the next generation to buy it back from the government and still have a farm at the end of the day. And so that's a huge deal. The child tax credit, which is, I think is really important. I mean, one of our problems we have with workforce is we're just having fewer kids. And so if finances are an issue, if that's the issue for some folks, then increasing that child tax credit from $2,000 to $2,200 and making it permanent so that there's certainty there going forward. Is that going to encourage bigger families? It may not, but it may with some, with that little bit of help come tax time. I don't know what to call this thing. They're calling it Trump accounts. And I think that is the official name. But when a child that is born here and parents, or a child is born of U.S. parents, is basically going to get $1,000 that will go into some type of a fixed account. It will to earn interest and that money will be available for that child to use, whatever. 18 years of investment, $1,000, I think it's going to be a significant amount of money. They're not able to withdraw it until age 18, but that is part of the new law, and I think that's a good thing, obviously, going forward. Certainly preventing the largest tax increase in history is huge. And that's what we did because the current the Jobs Act, Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was set to expire. And so we prevented that from occurring. But what we did do in tax cuts going beyond that, the 199A, which is important to agriculture, the doubling of the standard deduction. I mean, there's just so much there. Very positively that will impact our family farms, but will serve all Americans as well. A couple things that are in there that, and then see what kind of questions you have. Look forward to that. In the tax policy, there's also something called the Acre Act. Came out of Ways and Means. I think Randy Feenstra from Iowa was the author of that. We didn't get a full 100%, but what it amounts to is when you go to get a loan with a community bank or a banker or wherever you finance, because of being a farmer and a farm, ranch, forestry operation, at least part of what you borrow will now be at a kind of a nonprofit interest rate. Very similar to what these organizations do for municipalities, very low interest rate. And our farmers, I wish it would have been 100%, but in the negotiations it was just came down to like 10% or something like that. But the important thing is the foot in the door. And if we can show that how important how well that works, we'll have the opportunity in the future to be able to increase the percentage of those loan rates. And then in education. I'm also a senior member on the Education Workforce Committee. I lead the nation on career and technical education. I had the privilege of standing in the Oval Office with President Trump on the last day of July 2018. Now, I'm from the metropolis of Howard, Pennsylvania, which is 600 people and one red light. And we don't need a red light, but once you get one, you don't give it up. Be able to stand in the Oval Office when he signed my legislation modernizing career and technical education for the 21st century into law. In the education realm, under the Biden administration, they had changed the criterion for achieving access to student aid for school, for post-secondary school, for college. And they changed it from what we always used in the past, which was based on your revenue, and they changed it to assets. Well, I think everybody knows that farmers are asset rich and cash poor. And so that meant not just farmers, but small business owners, most of their kids were not eligible for this federal assistance, Pell Grants or low interest loans based on that. And we were able to change that back. As a part of this bill, and so to be able to invest in future generations. So that and so much more. It's just amazing what was in there. Let me just deal with what's left. We have a fair amount of policy, but about 20% of the Farm Bill is what we have left to do. I call that Farm Bill 2.0. We're working on it right now. It's not very controversial. It's hard to be against rural broadband and rural economic development and just good policy. And so we're currently working on that. I'm hoping that we'll be able to mark that up in committee by the end of September. It should be very bipartisan. That is the goal. We're working hard to keep it bipartisan, and it should be very affordable. Now, never in my life did I think I would say that something under $8 billion is not a lot of money, but it's. Quite frankly, in the scheme of things, it's very doable, and we will pay for that. We'll find pay-fors for it. We're not going to raise anybody's taxes or go further into debt. We'll find pay-fors to be able to do that. So that's the plan, and making it very bipartisan going forward. So.